Hi, everyone, and welcome to this episode of Software Success. I'm Ashley Jones, and I'll be steering you through some of the really cool features of Patch and Applique Maker today. If you haven't already, tell us over there where you're joining from, and I will give everybody a minute to get in and get comfortable. So as you guys know, this is all about software, our software success, the first and the third Tuesday of every month. And we talk all things Dime software. Now, just because I'm talking about Patch and Applique Maker today does not mean that you might not learn something if you have a different piece of Dime software. There are quite a few commonalities between our software. If you have the text option, they all work the same. If you have the selection tools, which they all do, alignment tools, things like that. So even if you don't have Patch and Applique Maker, you may still learn something about your piece of software. So it's always a great idea to join no matter which piece you have. So let's see where you guys are watching from. So I see Julie. I love this. So Julie is in Michigan, and she says that she is on in her car on the way home from a camping trip with her family this week. So that's awesome. Thank you so much, Julie, for joining. And I see we've got people from all over. We've got Arizona. Thanks for joining, Maria. Fatima from Texas, Siler City. Thanks for joining, Lonnie. And Laura Parks, I love that. She says, hello, everyone from Lincoln, Nebraska. Much awaited hour when I get the extra time to watch. So she said it's her favorite, also Between Friends. So thank you, Laura, for those kind words. And Between Friends, if you don't already watch our Between Friends, that's every Thursday with Eileen. And actually, this week's Software Success and this week's Between Friends actually are related. And I will tell you more about that coming up. Thanks for joining, Dawn from Creative Aptway. She says 90 plus in Virginia. So it is hot everywhere, isn't it? And so Natalie, hello from the hot days of August. I know it can get hot up there in Washington State and Skagit County. And so thanks for joining. That's my old stomping grounds up there too. So we lived up there for a while. Arizona, Michigan. I see Tampa, Florida. Thanks for joining, Lynette. Chris, Vic, thanks for joining. Good to see everybody starting to recognize quite a few names here. And Phil back, thanks for joining, Ann. It's always good to see you. And Jan, thank you so much. Jan's a frequent flyer and also attends, answers questions over there on our user group. So thank you so much, Jan, for all that you do to help us. Joanne Banco at Let's Go So, thank you so much for joining, Joanne. So sunny and mild in Nebraska, in Northeast Ohio. So thanks for joining. So, and Harriet Ann Palmer, my neighbor to the north there, our power is off with the storm. Okay, that's bad news. Harriet Ann is only just about 30 minutes north of me. So if we have any power issues, stand by. I'll try to get back as soon as possible. So thank you for letting me know that, Harriet Ann. I appreciate that. So, and Laurie, you know Laurie, she's part of our education team. She's our chat host. She also teaches lessons on our software. So thanks for joining. I appreciate all of you guys being here. So now one reminder before we get started, if you have a question as I'm going through the software, put several question marks prior to typing your question. It'll just help me pick it out of the lineup. Okay, so today we are going to be talking about Patch and Applique Maker Part 2. If you didn't see 2 weeks ago, make sure you go back and rewatch. You can rewatch all of these software success lessons. They live on our YouTube channel, and you can rewatch them as many times as you want. The getting started with Patch and Applique Maker was kind of that introduction, selecting features, but even if you missed it, you're still going to learn a lot today. And I always explain everything that I'm clicking and choosing so that even if you missed a couple of weeks ago, you'll still be perfectly fine today. But we are going to go a little bit more in depth with our Patch and Applique Maker today. I'm going to show you about editing designs, because even though this program is about creating patches and applique, if you have a design that you bring into the program, you can make some edits, and I'm going to share that with you. You can also create a design from an image. So I'm going to show you how to do that, and that actually works in quite a few dime software, both that and the editing design features as well. And I'm going to show you about changing the stitch types, and we're also going to talk about design colors. So actually, all of these things that I have here listed really will work in a lot of other dime programs. So they're questions, some of them are questions that respond from our Facebook user group that I thought would be really good to talk about. So, but I'll be using Patch and Applique Maker today. But certainly some of these features work in our other dime software. Okay, so let's head over to Patch and Applique. I have several different things here that I'm going to show you how I created. And then, like I said, we're going to also create from an image. So let's start with something really simple first. Everybody's starting back to school, right? And so this is a great time to make a back to school applique. So let's start with the text option, and then I'm going to also talk to you about the color palette down here, because these are questions that came up recently. So if you have a text tool in your software that you own from Dime, it all works the same way. You click on the T, and then you click one time on your blank workspace, and it will drop one letter in the font that you last used. And so in this particular case, the last font that I used was this Arial Applique, and so it chose that font for me. So then here in the properties box, we are going to enter our text. So in this case, I'm going to enter the class of, and I'm going to do 2024. So let's do the class of first, and I'm going to do a capital CLASSOF, and then click apply. Now, I do not want that in the applique. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to choose a different text. So I can either select from this drop-down list if you know the type of text that you want to use, or I can click directly onto this AABB, the yellow letters here. If I click in this window, it actually opens up my catalog. And this really is how I like to view my fonts, because don't get me wrong, some of these names I use so much, I know what the font looks like, but I don't necessarily know all of the names. So this is a better way for me personally to select my font. So I'm going to use this brush script here, and I'm going to click OK. And so now I've got class of on the screen, and I'm going to add 2024 in an applique. Now, if you ever want to use two different types of text in any Dime program, then you simply add the text and what you want it to say on the screen, and then you just add another text. So you can see that I do still have my text tool selected, and I can tell I do because you see my cursor blinking there, but do you see the capital letter A that is right next to my cursor? That's telling me that I still have my text tool selected. Another way to know which tool I have selected, you can see there's actually a box around my text tool up here. So I don't have to reselect it. I can just simply click again on the screen. If you don't have it selected, you would simply just select the text tool again and then add your letter to the screen. So I click one time, it drops the letter A for me, and then I'm going to go over here in my properties box and I'm going to change the A to what I want it to say. In this case, I'm going to say 2024, and then I'm going to click apply. Now let's talk about some other things in this property box here before we change our type. So this is my area that I'm going to enter the text that I want. I can change the height. I can change the space by percentage, which is actually the space between the letters. So if I put a positive number here, so let's do, say, a 5, that's going to be 5% increase. You can see my letters increased further apart. Now, if I put a negative number, they're going to get closer together. So I'm going to do a -10, and take a look at my 2024 here, and it's going to scooch those closer together. So that's what the space is. The line spacing, if you have 2 rows of text, so let's just do another row here so we can see that. So I just hit the Enter key, and I put text on a different line in my properties area here, and that actually puts it on a different line on the screen, as you can see. Now, the line spacing right now, it's 25%. I'm actually going to increase that to 100 and click apply. And you can see that my space between my lines actually increased. And I can also choose these other options here. Optimize colors are going to put all of the like colors, to stitch together. We definitely want one thread change if the color is going to be the same. And then the alignment options here, if you have two text, I'm going to put class of 2024 here. So we've got text that's two different links. And so let me just, I'm going to do an undo there. That's my favorite key if you don't already know me. And then I'm going to put this back to our 25% to put that close together. Now the alignment here is going to allow you to have your multiple rows of text center aligned, right aligned, and if I choose that and click right, and then left aligned, if I choose that, click left and click apply. So those are your alignment tools, and then your circle option here. So for the circle tool, if you select circle and then click apply, you can see that it put the 2024 and class of 2024 on that circle path there. And now I can put that all on one line here in my properties, and you can see that it's all at the top. If I click the reverse direction, that puts it all on the bottom. And if I actually physically separate the lines here, like we did by just hitting enter on my keyboard, it'll put top for the first line, bottom for the second line. And if you reverse directions, like I still have checked, you can see that it actually reversed the two. So if I uncheck that, it'll put it back the way I have it in my properties area here. Now, all of these little shapes that are around your text all will do something different. Now, I could tell you what every one of these will do, but what I would say to you is to simply play with these. Put some text on your screen and just drag these little things around and see what happens. That's going to be the easiest way to learn. We also have the option for doing italic if you check that. But before I do that, I'm actually going to do back to normal and click apply, and that'll put it just my two lines of text there. And then if I click the italic, you'll see that it's going to slant that text for me in that italic format. And then you have this option for stairs. So take a look at what happens with stairs. I'm going to take away the class of 2024 here and just leave our 2024 text. If I choose stairs and click apply, then you can see there that it actually makes those offset just slightly like stairs. And again, each of those little shapes there all do something different. So if you're wondering what they do, then click and drag and play with them. So they can make your text convex, concave. They can allow you to edit one letter. They can let you resize, rotate. You can also make your text kind of be like a megaphone shape by dragging one corner. And then I'm going to do a right mouse click and say reset. That's going to put it back to normal and undo all of those things that I did. I could also do my undo key as well. So if you see that I am using the shortcut Control Z, and it puts it undoes every step of the way. So cool, right? Okay, so those text editing features are all the absolute same in all of the Dime software if you have the text tool. Okay, so now let's change this to an applique text. We are in Patch and Applique Maker, so we have some really nice applique fonts. So I'm going to use this font here, I think. Let's apply it and see if it looks like what I want it to. That's not exactly the one that I like, so let's go to the Arial one. I like that one a little better. And now remember I had my space set to -10. So if I remove that and just put it back to 0%, that's the normal distance between my text. Now you also have the ability to change the distance between your text by clicking and dragging these double triangles. That is our on-screen kerning, and by doing that, you can simply move the text around, and you can adjust the space there between your letters and numbers in this case. Okay, so we've got two different fonts on the screen, and let's talk about making these different colors. So now that we've added our text, we've got a satin text here, and we've got applique text here. So if you want to change the color, this was a question that came up recently that is really important because we like to have different colors in our design. And so the color chips below is what you use to adjust those colors. So now let's talk about using the color selection area down here on all these color chips. Now, when you open up your software, you automatically get this default palette, and you can certainly change what colors automatically show up by setting those to be what you want, and then by saving your palette over here to the right. You can make the current palette your default, or you can reset it to the original. But these are the colors that come up automatically, and I'm fine with them because I'm going to put whatever color thread I want anyway. Let me close that out. Okay, notice I've got text on the screen. They are separate elements, and if I go over to my sequence view here, you can see that I have text and text because they're two different objects. So now let's select the class of. I can either click on the screen or I can click over here in my sequence view, and then I want to change the color. Right now, it is pulling from color chip number 1, and I can tell that because I have a little blue box around that number 1, but I can also tell because over here in my sequence view, it says color number 1. So it's telling me which color. So now if I want to change this to, let's say, orange, I'm going to right mouse click on color number 4. So right click, and it changes that object that I have selected to that new color that I right mouse click on. Now you can see over here in my sequence view, they're broken up because I have one that's pulling from color number 4, and then the 2024 is still pulling from color number 1. Okay, now another way to change the color of your text. So 2024 is pulling from color chip number 1. So if I were to click on number 1, I could set that to a new color. So instead of blue, I changed it to a green. I click OK, and now you can see my text is now green. Okay, now let's say I click on color number 5, which is a yellow, and I change that to a light blue, this retro mint color here, and click OK. Nothing happens to my design because nothing is using color chip number 5. So if I want to change the 2022 to color chip number 5, then I need to right mouse click on that color to select that color chip for the object that I have selected. So hopefully that helps clarify how to select and change your colors. So it's actually, once you get accustomed to it, it'll make much more sense each time you go to select. If you don't like the idea of right mouse clicking, then if you go to your general options, so tools and general options, you do have the ability under the view option where it says use a left click on the palette to apply the color. You can put a check mark there, and it will then allow you to select an object and then click one time on the color to change it. I prefer the right mouse click because I have used that for a lot of years, and so it's a habit for me, so I'm going to leave mine the way it is. Okay, so now let's talk about this design here. So I've got class of 2024. This is an applique text with the satin text. So if I watch my slow redraw, you can see that it's going to stitch the class of, and then it's going to do the 2024 in my applique. So I can save this design into the format for my embroidery machine by going File and Save As. And now you're going to choose the location that you want to put this design. Now, if I want to put it on my desktop, I click my desktop and then I can give it a name. I'm going to say class of 2024. If you want to save it to a USB stick, then just simply scroll down and locate your USB stick on your device. So this is actually an external drive that I have connected. So I click on it and then I can save it right here, and then that I can take to my embroidery machine. Make sure that you change the type to a stitch file format that your machine recognizes. So if it's PES or EXP, HUS, VIP, whatever format you use, select it before you click save. Now, I do recommend saving also in the native format of C2S. The C2S format is going to make it much easier to edit. If you save in the C2S format, I can get back and edit my text, whereas the PES expanded format does not allow me to use my text tool again because it saves it out into a format that my machine can recognize. So let's do that, and I'll show you what I mean. So I'm going to choose my desktop just for ease of use. So I'm going to save class of 2024 as the native C2S, and then I'm going to save it again, file, save as. And I'm going to choose my embroidery machine format. So whatever format you use, I'm going to use the VP3, and then I'm going to click save. Okay, I'm going to close this design out, and then I'm going to bring in those two designs so that we can see a difference. So I'm going to say File and Open. I'm going to go to my desktop, and I'm going to bring in the C2S file. Now, notice when I bring in the C2S file, when I click on the text, see over here, I can actually make an adjustment. So maybe this should be class of 2025. Or maybe I want to change this and say, welcome class of 2025. I can certainly change that just by adding that text right here and reapplying that text, okay? So now that's the C2S file. Let's open, file, open, the VP3, which is an embroidery machine format that I use, but this is also the same if you use PES or anything else. Now notice that over here in my sequence view, I've got every single step as a different element or a different object in my sequence view. So when I click on class of, now it just selects the satin stitch. It does not give me the properties over here in my properties area to change my text. That's because when you save to an embroidery machine format, the software will have to convert that to what the embroidery machine understands. And so that's why it does no longer says text. If I go back to the C2S file, notice over here in my sequence view, it says text for each of these objects. That is telling the software that this is a text object, and then I can adjust those pieces right here. So that's why you want to save in the native format and also your machine format to take it to your embroidery machine. So isn't that cool? So really easy to do, and I think quite simple, right? Okay, so now let's see if we have any questions before we go on to the next demonstration. So I'm just going to scroll back here and try to look for those question marks quickly. So BJ, Hathril looks like I have Pep and Patch and Applique Maker, and I have 3 questions. Okay, well, hit me with those questions. Maybe they're below. We'll answer those questions for you. And Dawn says, yes, there's so many features, definitely worth having. I totally agree, Dawn. It definitely gives you like a ton of things. And look, I love that BJ numbered the questions. So how do I center a design and not have to squish vertically or horizontally? Okay, I'll show you that when I head back over there. That's a great question. And then let's see what else we've got so that maybe I can answer a couple of them when I go back all at once. So BJ's second question, how do I change the size of the outer patch circle satin stitch without making it wider and thicker? So I have tried, and it looks like it does, but it doesn't stitch out wider and thicker. So looks like it does, but it doesn't. So you want it to be wider and thicker. I can share that with you. That's actually a really good question. And that actually falls into a demonstration that I'm going to show next about changing the stitch type. So I'll incorporate that as well, BJ. So, and then Jan says, can you go over the alignment tools at the top menu bar? Absolutely. And so it seems that when I try to use it, the design stack on top of each other, and otherwise, or likewise with the horizontal. And so I'll definitely go over that. I know exactly what you're talking about, Jan. In fact, with those 3 questions, so that I can maybe remember all 3, let's head back over there and I will answer those 3. So I'm going to work backwards here. Let's do the alignment. And since I've got the welcome and the 2025 on the screen, I'm going to take the welcome away and just do the class so that it's really obvious what we're lining up. Okay, so when you have 2 objects, and in this case, I've got 2 text objects on the screen, and I select both of them, I've got my alignment tools here that are align left, align right, I've got align top, and you can see that it puts everything at the same level. So I'm actually going to do an undo here, and then slide my class of over here to the left, so that when we're aligning top and aligning bottom, you can see what I mean here. So let me select all of these, align top and align bottom, and you can see that it's lining up with those edges. Now, this particular one here is the vertical alignment. You can see it aligns with the center of the 2025, and I put my class back over here and select both of them. And then this is my horizontal center alignment. So if I'm trying to get something centered in, say, a circle or a square or a shape, let me just leave the 2025 and I'll show you what I mean. So let's go to the shapes here, and let's grab just a shape that we can align in. So let's see what we've got here. That would be a nice little shape, maybe one of these shields here. And I'm going to select this one, and then let's make our 2025 smaller. Now that is too small for Applique, I will tell you that, but we're just doing a test here. And you can see on the screen, this is actually a really good point. Look at that text on the screen. It doesn't even look good. So if it doesn't look good on the screen, chances are it's not going to look good when you stitch it out. So of course, this is too small for an Applique, but I can switch that to a different font that is a stitched font, which is perfect. Okay, so now to get something to be centered both horizontally and vertically, if you select both of these and click the vertical first, or it doesn't matter, horizontal first and vertical first. So now we are centered, and you can see here, I know it doesn't look like it, but this box, you can see that's my center mark here and here. And so it is centered in this shape, even though it looks like it's too low because of the shape of this design. Now, that's a good reason to sometimes center things visually and not necessarily mathematically. So then I can center that left to right. Now, what Jan mentioned about her design not it's stacking everything up. This is a really good example. So this is actually a free design from our On the House designs that Eileen announces every week. And this design, I'm going to add some text just so we've got something to center. So I'm going to just say aloha here and click apply. And then we can change the color, or we can not, whatever you want. So I right mouse click to change the color. Now, if you want to center this all up, let's make this a patch. Okay, so in my artwork tools here, I'm going to click, choose a rectangle, and then I'm going to click and drag and make a box around it. And when I select that box, this is not stitches yet. It's just artwork. Okay, so if I want to turn that into stitches, I'm going to actually resize it so that it's closer to my hat here. And I just click and drag those handles in. So if I want to make this a patch, I'm going to click my applique option, because for a patch, I need a placement and a tack down, and then that's going to give me my my satin stitch around the edge. So if I wanted to make sure this was all centered vertically. So if I select everything and I click here to make sure that everything's aligned, look what the mess it makes. So this is what Jan is talking about. So if I do an undo, when this happens, just hit your undo key because it happens to me all the time. What you want to do is each object, you want to make sure that it's grouped. Okay, so the aloha, it is one object right here. My outline is one object, but my hat actually consists of all of these separate pieces. So if I select all of them, I could do one of two things. I can click and drag a box around it, or I can click in my sequence view and hold down my shift key and then click the last layer and it'll select everything. And then I'm going to choose the group option. Group makes it all grouped together as one object. So do you see now in my sequence view, I've got the hat, I've got the text, and I've got the outline for my patch shape. So now if I select everything, Control A or click and drag, I can use my alignment tools to make sure that it's all centered. Now, if I do not have the aloha, I could select everything. I'm going to click and drag a box around it, and I could click the vertical and then the horizontal alignment to make sure it's in the center of my shape. So hopefully that helps. And then this is actually a really good point to answer BJ's second question about resizing her design here, and she wants that thicker outline. So now this is an applique shape, and in this case it could be a patch for this hat. But if you want this satin stitch to be wider, you're going to want to adjust that here in your properties area. So I have it selected, and then here in my applique width, I'm going to increase that number. Now I'm going to go big just so you can see the difference, and I can make that 5 millimeters for that satin stitch. If I were to resize this shape smaller or larger, it's not going to make the satin stitch any wider because it is going to maintain that 5 millimeter setting that I have set. So it doesn't make it narrower and it does not make it wider. Okay, so you need to adjust that here in your properties if you want a wider satin stitch. So just like that. So hopefully that is what BJ was asking there. And then BJ's other question was about centering a design both horizontally and vertically without squishing it. So your alignment tools here is going to do exactly that. And I think BJ, your question was probably the same one as Jan there. And so make sure that it's grouped. But let me point out another option here. For resizing, you want to resize proportionately. Click and drag the corner handles, or over here in your properties, enter the height and the width, or the width, and leave this maintain aspect ratio checked. If you want to resize unproportionately, you can drag those corner handles or the side handles here, or either the top and the bottom, and that will allow you to resize your design unproportionately to what it was already set to be. So hopefully that helps. So we'll see if we've got other questions from you guys here in just a minute. So while I'm here, let me then talk to you a little bit more about editing a design. Now this cute little hat design here, we just saw how to add text to it, and I put a frame around it that could be an applique or a patch. Now if I do undo, this is my favorite key. Guys, use this undo. You can do undo, or you can do a Control Z is the shortcut. And I'm going to get my text back on here, because I also want to talk to you about if this is going to be a patch shape. One thing I do recommend is using the style. This little t-shirt here are some built-in preset styles that if you're doing a patch, if you choose to do a patch pre-cut or either just a regular patch, it's going to optimize those stitches for a patch design. So I definitely encourage you to do that. It's going to give those stitches what they need to be the perfect patch, which has to do with the inset and the tack down. Now, let's also talk while we're here about adjusting the stitch type. So now, if you have an applique, so I'm going to actually bring in another design for this example. So I'm going to open up a new page up here in the top left, and I'm going to choose File and Open again. Now, you can bring any design that you own into this software and use it with your patch and applique maker or any dime software. Now I'm going to use a design here, another one of our on the house designs, but what you can do works that similar way. Now remember, we talked about bringing in the machine format file, which is a lot of times what you'll have. So I'm going to bring in the PES file here. And let's talk about this design. Let's say you just want these flip-flops and not the rest of the stuff. So the easiest way to get rid of that is over in your sequence view to select each of those objects and just press the delete on your keyboard. Now I'm going to leave the placement, tack down, and the finishing stitch of my flip-flops, and I'm going to leave the flip-flop straps, but the remainder of the stuff here, I'm going to click and then hold down my shift key and then select that whole row and press delete. And then I'm just left with this cute little flip-flop design. So now this is an applique design that is going to give me the placement, the tack down, and the finishing stitch. Okay, so this is a file that is a PES file. Now remember, if you bring in the C2S file, you do have better control over that design. So I'm going to open up a new page again, and let's do File and Open. And I'm going to choose the C2S file of those flip-flops. Now, because this C2S file was created in our software, if I click on these areas and I do the plus, I've got more information here about my design, as long as it was created as an applique format. So this actually doesn't say applique, so it was actually already saved out, broken up, probably for the stitch order. And so I can still edit this in the same way by selecting the parts and pieces and just deleting what I don't want. I can also select it on the screen if it's easily selectable without actually grabbing another piece of the design, and I can just delete, delete, delete until that's gone. Okay, so same thing applies with the designs that maybe you own from other designers or other digitizers. You can bring them in and edit them in the same exact manner. Okay, so now let's see if we've got other questions before we do the last little segment here. And so Kathy says, how much is the patch and applique maker, and can it be used with other programs? Yes, it can. The price that we have is on our website. I'll show you a promo for that in just a bit, but I urge you to always check with your dealer. Your dealer is going to be able to give you a much better price. So check with your local dealer that sells dime software for what price they may have. You might get a better price, but I'll share that price with you coming up here in just a bit. And then Laura says, if you want to use a different color, would you have to select 2024 one at a time so that each number could be selected separately? Laura, that's a really good question. If you have only the patch and applique maker, yes, you would enter the number 2 and the number 0 and the number 4 and the other number 2 separately, so you could select them separately and then change the numbers. If you have Perfect Embroidery Pro, it will actually let you make a selection that does that all for you. And I'll actually show you that before we finish today, because that's actually a really nice lead in to Perfect Embroidery Pro, which is what I'm going to be showing at the next Software Success. So I'll make sure to talk about changing those letter colors as well, so that you can see different ways to do it. So, and Mary, thanks for joining, Mary. Mary is also a frequent flyer at on our user group and our Software Success, so thanks for joining. Is there a place in settings to change the color in applique so that the machine stops between placement, stitch down, and the finishing stitch? So if you select an applique in the software, it automatically does that. the applique to the program means placement, tack down, and finishing stitch. So it already does that, and whenever you save that to your machine format, it'll break it out for you. And I'll actually show you that. Actually, another really good question, Laura. So I'll talk about that when I go back as well. And then, or Mary, sorry, good question, Mary. And then Laura also says, is this true in any software, the different colors? And so I think if it's the same question, so if you have Perfect Embroidery Pro or Word Art and Stitches, it will let you automatically do a color change between those numbers, and I'll show you that coming up. So, and then Cynthia, how much is the software? I'll talk about the price that we have on it in just a bit. And then, like I said, always check with your local dealer that sells dime product, because they may actually be able to give you even a better price. And then says, do you have to make each number a separate text element in order to change the color? That's a popular question, so I'll definitely get to that. I'll go back over there and do that coming up. And then Linda G, right? Linda G, I think, says, is there a way to set a certain patch and applique setting as a default so that it sticks? You can do things like that in our Perfect Embroidery Pro. But for Patch and Applique Maker, there's not as much control over those type of things. It's more of a ease of use, a one click, not having to make those changes and save. But Perfect Embroidery Pro does actually let you make customized settings like that. And then Linda Johnson says, is there also an icon for centering the design on the screen? Oh, that's another great question. So centering vertically and horizontally are two different things from centering on the screen. So I'll show you that too and as we head back over there. So, okay, so let's head back over and look at those a couple of things here. So let's talk about centering on the screen. So let me go back to, say, my class of 2024 here. And then if I select this and just kind of move it out of the way, if I want to center it on the screen. So right now, if I zoom back in, if you double click your zoom tool, it will zoom it in on the screen for you. But you can see here on my ruler bar that I'm over in the 7/8, and then I'm not here at the 0. If you select everything and do a right mouse click on the ruler bar and say center origin, it will put it at 0 and 0 on your screen. Now I will tell you, I'm going to do an undo here and make it offset again. Oh wait, it actually won't undo that part. So let's just slide it over. So now that I'm not at 0, 0 again, I will tell you that if you save your design like this, it's perfectly fine. You do not have to put it at center of origin to make that work. It will still save the design. If it's the only design on the screen, it doesn't matter if it's offset or not. Your embroidery machine is not going to think that it's out of the hoop. But to center it at 0, 0, right mouse click and center of origin. So that's the way that you'd want to do that. So okay, so now the Mary's question about the machine stops for the placement. So now this design was saved out as the VP3, and remember we've got the one as the C2S here, and I'm going to actually do undo. Remember, even though we went here, remember you can do undo as many times as you want. So if I click undo, undo, it's going back to our original C2S file, and I can do that as many times all the way back to the very beginning. And now my undo key is unavailable because I'm already back to the beginning. Okay, so Mary Larson asked about the applique and the machine stop. So now look at the C2S design here, and it says text and text, but this is applique text. So it does know that there's a placement stitch and a tack down. So if we watch our slow redraw, and you can see that I've got a placement stitch and a tack down right there, but they are all the same color and they're not separated out over here. Okay, so when you save this design to your machine format, which is what we did here, then notice what I get. I've got the class of as one color, but every one of these individual elements is a different color chip. So do you see here how it's still the same color down on the bottom, but every one is a different colored chip? number 2, number 3, number 4, number 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So your machine, even though it's the same color, is going to see that as a color stop, and will stop to let you put down your fabric, tack it down, and do that finishing stitch. Now, if you personally like to see it as separate colors, you certainly can go in and change these colors, but I do assure you that it does not matter if they are all the same color, because they are on separate color chips. So if you want something to be the same color visually, but you want your software to still tell the machine to stop, a different color chip that's still the same color is still going to make the machine stop. So hopefully that makes sense for those questions that you guys asked. So now I still owe Laura an answer about the different colors. So now we have our C2S file here. Now I cannot change the color for the different colors, but if I save that to the machine format, I can then select this and I can choose a different color. So that's one way to do it. Or on the screen to enter this as separate numbers. So right now 2024 is all 1. So if I enter the 2 and choose my text tool again and enter the 0, and then text tool again to enter my 2024, my 2, and then one more for my 4. Then I've got 4 separate objects that I can select. So what I'm going to do is just select each of them. And then I can use my alignment tools here. So I can align all the way to the bottom. And now they're on the same plane, and then I can just, visually kind of move those over. And now each of these is a separate object, so I can change them to all different colors, just like that. Okay. And now that I moved them around, I would select them all again and line them up even again. Now, the space between these numbers, I will tell you, since in Patch and Applique Maker, you can't change how I'm about to show you, but you can use your grid. I never turn this on when I'm demonstrating because it's very distracting. But if you want to make sure that these are all spaced perfectly apart, you can use your grid to help you align those pieces so they're the same. So that's one way to do that. Now this, remember, I had italic selected, so that's why that 2 looks a little bit different. But use your grid. This tool here turns your grid off and on, and that can help you with lining things up like you see here, okay? But like I said, I'll show you in Perfect Embroidery Pro what you can do a little bit different. So, okay, so let's see what other questions we have here, and then we'll go on to showing you how you can use an image. So how much is Patch and Applique Maker, and can it be used with other programs? We already answered that. The answer is yes, it certainly can. And then let's see what else we've got here. We did Linda's. I think I saw BJ had another question here. This was question number 3, I think, from BJ. So does the answer about the width work with patches that come with the software? Yes, it sure does. So you can adjust the width of any of those built-in satin stitches, and you can also adjust the density if you like. It automatically adjusts the density for you, so you don't have to touch that number if you don't want, but you can certainly change that over in the properties as well. And then Crystal says stabilizer for patches. So a heavy duty water soluble is what we recommend. It's a clear stabilizer that's heavy, but lucky for you guys, so in 2 days on Thursday, Eileen and Deborah are talking about patches and stitching those, so make sure you join their Facebook Live, and I'll share that with you, how to find that before we go. Can you iron on a patch on a cap? Yes, you absolutely can. If you have some sort of fusible product, you can put it on the back of your patch and ask and fuse that onto your hat. So, and then Diana says, can the applique be exported as a cutter file? It sure can. So let me show you how to do that before we go on to the using your own design. So cutter format, and then how do you add stops to the applique? So Kelly, I just went over that. When you save from our software, It automatically does that. If you create the applique in our program, when you save it to your stitch file of your machine, it automatically breaks that out for you so that your machine does recognize those stops. So, okay, so now let's go over and let's do the cutter file. So now each one of these are applique. So if I want to create the cutter file, either for a patch or an applique, you would select your items that you want to create the applique for. In fact, let me go over to, I'll do two different types of patches here. So I lost my little hat. There we go. Okay, so this is a shape for your patch. If you select this and you click your cutter tool, then it's going to create that shape that you can save to your cutter format. When you click save, you can choose your cutter format in this list, either SVG, DXF, PLT, or FCM. One of those should work with your cutter. And then you can take that to your cutter and cut out that exact shape for your patch. That also does work for your applique pieces as well. You can save that if you've got an applique piece selected. Now, let me go over to my flip-flops again, because this is actually a really good point. So these flip-flops were brought in from an external source, which might be something that you're going to do. So to create a cut file for an applique that was not created in our software, all you have to do is select the placement line. So if I hide each one of these pieces here, you can see there's my placement, there's my tack down, and there's my finishing stitch. So that placement line there, if I just select the placement line and click my cutter tool, then of course it's not working like it should, but usually that does bring in that shape into the cutter tool, so you can create that cut file for your little flip-flop. So let me click it again. I have no idea why that's working, so I probably just need to do a reboot or something, but you can create that file. If it doesn't do it, you certainly can create an outline around that. If you have one that doesn't work, if you create an outline and make it 0, it's going to follow along that shape, and then you can, that's an artwork shape that definitely will work for your cutter. So you can see that it actually then will create that cut shape for you. So that's kind of a way around it if the design you're working with doesn't allow you to select the cutter icon. So yes, you can create cut files with Patch and Applique Maker. Now, the last thing I want to share with you is creating a design from an image, and I'm going to start a new page, and I'm going to talk to you about images that are raster and vector images. So if you do file and import artwork, if you have an SVG file or a FCM file or any sort of vector file, and I'm going to use this peace sign for an example. Actually, let's use this flower because it's got two separate pieces. I can bring this in. These might be files that you have from your cutter. I can select these and then automatically just click to convert those to an applique. So if I select the artwork, I can click and turn that into an applique, and then I can select the two leaves and I can click to turn that into an applique. Now, just like we talked about changing the width of the satin, you can also change the type of the stitch. So here I can use my drop down, I can change it to tackle twill, I can change it to an E-stitch, which is like a blanket stitch. I can change it to a specialty motif stitch here as well. I can even just do a run stitch, okay? So that's an artwork file that I select and then just convert to embroidery. And you can see how I can select each of these pieces separately of a vector artwork type file, okay? Now, let's talk about an image that's like a JPEG or a PNG. To use a JPEG or a PNG, you have to use the load backdrop feature. It will not work with import artwork. Import artwork is for vectors. Load backdrop is for your raster images. So I'm going to go up and let's do one that I can trace quickly. So here's this little car. Now, notice I can't select this. I'm clicking and I'm dragging and nothing is happening because this is just an image that I can trace. It is not an artwork image that I can select. So if you want to create a design from an image like this, then you're going to bring it in and then you need to trace it with your artwork tool. Okay, so I'm going to select the backdrop here and let's set the size. So it's a 16-inch design or image right now. So I'm going to drop it down to 5. And then I'm going to zoom back in. And then let's lighten up our design here so that I can see for tracing. Now, to create this design, because I can't select it, I need to trace it. So these built-in artwork tools, and specifically the pen tool, will allow me to trace. So I'm just going to click, follow along with my mouse. I'm holding down my control key so that it gives me a curve point. Now, I'm not going to spend a lot of time to do this perfectly. But you'll get the idea here. But I can trace my shape, and I'm just going to go straight across instead of going behind my wheels here. And once I have traced it, I can then convert that into an applique. Okay, so now I've got my shape traced. I'm going to hide my image. Now that's a really bad tracing, but you get the idea. And then again, I just click for my car shape. I can turn that green, and let's turn our image back on. Now for the wheels, instead of tracing around that circle, I could simply use my circle tool and I could draw a circle and convert that to an applique. And then I'm going to copy and paste it and then move that over to this wheel. And now I could do the center as well, but for the sake of time, I'm just going to do those. And then, of course, you can draw the windows and things like that. Now, if you've got two overlapping appliques, do you see over here where it says applique and applique and applique? If you've got the type applique and it overlaps, when I save this file, save as, remember, save your C2S file, but then also save your PES file. So I'm going to just do your machine format file. It doesn't have to be PES. Let's do something different. So maybe a EXP. And I'm going to call this my car and click save. And we're going to open up that file. So I'm going to do file open, and it's going to open it up on a new page. So here's my car. Look what happened. It automatically cut that satin stitch from behind my wheels, because these wheels are actually going to have fabric there, and you don't want that satin stitch running underneath. So when you save it to your embroidery machine format, it will do that as long as it is type applique overlapping. And notice what has happened here. I've got a placement that is a green chip number 1. I've got tack down, that's green chip number 2, and then that finishing stitch is number 3. Now my machine's going to stop even though these are all green because they are separate color chips, and the same is true for the wheels as well. So hopefully that helps. And then before I show you how to learn how to stitch out your patch, I'll show you where you can find that presentation. Let me show you, if you have Perfect Embroidery Pro or Word Art and Stitches, let's talk about our class of 2004 and what we could do differently. So as soon as this is done thinking, I'm going to go back to my 2004, and now these are separate letters. That's how we are separate objects. Now I'm going to go back and put 2024, not 2024, 2024, and click apply. Now to change colors between the letters, if you have Word Art and Stitches or Perfect Embroidery Pro, you can simply select the 2024, go to this command tool here, and where it says color change, choose characters and click apply. And look at that. Isn't that much easier? So that is the reason that it's nice to have multiple pieces of Dime software, because they work together seamlessly. So now this topic right here is the perfect segue for our next software success, which is going to be on Perfect Embroidery Pro. So let me repeat myself one more time. What I just did with changing the color between those letters with just the click of my properties, that is a Word Art and Stitches or a Perfect Embroidery Pro feature. Okay, so now let me head back over here, and I want to share with you, if you want to know tips for stitching out your patch or how to stitch out a patch, on Thursday this week, this is the perfect timing. Eileen and Deborah will be talking about patches. So you'll see exactly how to stitch them out, what stabilizer you need to use, and they will talk about turning any design into a patch and putting it on almost any surface, which means you can fuse it, you can stitch it. So make sure you join them for how to stitch out these patch designs that we were making in our patch and applique maker. So this is a perfect complimentary Facebook Live and YouTube Live for these two this week. Now, if you do not know how to find Eileen at Between Friends, or to get back to these software success, you want to make sure you like us on Facebook. You'll get notifications, and also subscribe to our YouTube channel. So if you're unfamiliar how to do that, take a look at this short video of how to do just that.
In this video, we'll show you how to subscribe to a YouTube channel and follow a Facebook page through your phone. Let's start with YouTube. First, open your YouTube app on your phone. Once you're on your home page, search for the Designs in Machine Embroidery in the search bar at the top of the screen. Click on it and go to the channel page. Once on the channel page, click the subscribe button, and that's it. You're now subscribed to the channel. Now let's move on to Facebook. First, open your Facebook app. Once on your home page, search for Designs in Machine Embroidery in the search bar at the top of the screen. Once on the profile page, click the three dots and select the follow button. And that's it. You're now following the page. Thanks for watching.
So the Patch and Applique Maker software is what I was using today. So our price on our website is $399.99. You do get a 30-minute private tutoring session and 3 PDF tutorials. So you can certainly check that out and make a purchase, but do check with your dealer. I definitely recommend your dealer could probably make you a much better deal on the software. And I do see a few more questions popping up, so let's answer those quickly before we go. So Laura asked, should we save in C2S in any software? C2S is native to Dime software, so yes, any Dime program that you have, I definitely would save your file in a C2S and save it for your machine format, because if you need to go back and edit, I would keep that C2S format for editing purposes. Me personally, I save all of my C2S files on my computer. I only put my machine files on my USB stick, and every so often I will delete all the files on the USB stick because I have all of the C2S files on my computer. And that's just me personally, how I kind of keep track of mine. And so Natalie says, how do you make an applique cut on a device like a scan and cut? So you'll use the cutter tool that I showed, and that you may have asked this before I showed it, Natalie, but that cutter tool, which is one of the icons, is how you'll generate that cut file. And then Alice says, can all the features that you're showing in these modules like Patch and Applique Maker, Cut and Stitch be accomplished in PEP with a few more clicks, so without the shortcuts? So yes, I would say pretty much everything that we have in our modules, if you can manually digitize, then yes, Perfect Embroidery Pro does allow you to do all of these things. So if you know how to digitize, you can create the stitches that you need for patches. You can work with artwork, things like that in Perfect Embroidery Pro. All of the separate pieces just make it that much easier to actually do, because you're usually just clicking that option. So Pamela said, I broke up text and changed the color. That's it. It's that easier. You can break up text. Not all of the programs have the breakup text option, but yes, if yours does, when you do breakup text, it actually separates out each letter as a different object. So remember, if you break up text, you can't go back and edit it with your text tool. So if you can change those colors with the color change as I showed, you can still edit your text the easy way. But yes, break up text would also work as well. So, and then Lindy G Videos says, how do you move the exit and entry point? That is also a PEP feature as well. So PEP is our full feature digitizing and editing. So the other modules don't have a lot of digitizing capabilities. They're more the feature is built in where you can just do those clicks easily to make it happen. But that is definitely a feature that's in our Perfect Embroidery Pro for sure. And then Linda Garrison says, can you import a cut file and turn it into an applique? You sure can. That's exactly what that yellow flower was. That was a cut type file, an SVG or an FCM, and you can just turn that right into an applique, just as you saw me do. Can you create a cut file without the artwork file? Well, I have done that before just by selecting the run stitch. It didn't seem to want to do it today, so I just created that artwork outline. And that's what the cutter pulled from. So play and see. If you can't make it, then create your outline. That's an easy way to create an artwork file around any shape. And then we just answered that one, Linda, about the cut file. So that's a really good question. And then why do SVGs for cutting export rotated weird angles? So that is optimizing the use of your fabric. So it'll put them in different angles to try to conserve the best you can, but you can uncheck that orientation so that it will not rotate if you don't want it to. So that's actually a great question. And then Linda says, is there a wizard that does the tracing of the artwork? We do have an artwork tool in Perfect Embroidery Pro that will auto trace, or in the cut and stitch that will auto vectorize. But in the patch and applique maker, there's not an auto trace built in. So, and then Doris says, do you have a chart that shows the features of each of the Dime software packages? I am actually currently working on that. It's not finished, but hopefully we'll see that in the future that compares. We have like 14 different pieces of software, so it's just taking some time to get all that information on a printed piece of media. Okay, so thank you all for being here in the next Software Success, which is actually September the 5th. So I won't see you till after Labor Day. And so September the 5th is going to be on Perfect Embroidery Pro. Now, Perfect Embroidery Pro is our full feature digitizing editing program. And so we're going to talk a lot about the built-in tools because they do address some of the things that we've talked about today. But I'll go over text manipulation again, and we'll talk about more details and also editing a design. Now, Perfect Embroidery Pro is a very powerful program, but there are some commonalities like the text and being able to edit the designs like we did today, but you can even go further into edits in Perfect Embroidery Pro. So join me on September the 5th for that. And do not forget to join, let me back up here, Eileen and Deborah for the patches this week. That is this Thursday. If you go to our Facebook group for Designs and Machine Embroidery or our YouTube channel, they're going to talk about all about patches and stitching them out. And I bet, if I know Eileen, I bet you'll see a little bit more in the software as well. So it's always nice to check her out over there. She has lots of surprises. So, okay, guys, until the next Software Success, I'll say thank you so much for being here, and I will see you next time.